Nate Green, thank you so much for joining me.
Jackson, man, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. You've had a very interesting life. Lots of highs, lots of lows. I want to start there. Did you always have a drive for entrepreneurship?
I did always have a drive. I was always a little bit different. I was ADHD as a kid, undiagnosed until I was an adult. I was a little bit odd. I didn't learn the way everybody learned. I was not the easiest. I was a good kid, but I was never the easiest kid. And
Mm,
so I always wanted to understand why and how things worked. And I was always kind of like a little bit different than the people around me and not just okay with following the steps. And then,
mm,
with some of the guidance from my parents, I went into a job that had a pension because that was something that was important to my dad is a pension or retirement, a pension or retirement. Man, I heard that from when I was probably like 12 years old. And so I found a career that had a pension or retirement.
yeah. How did you go from there to, okay, I'm gonna start my own thing. I'm gonna do my own path.
Well, talking about what we were talking about before we started recording, God has a way of guiding our paths, and
Mm,
that career was as a cop. I was a law enforcement officer, a cop here in Florida, for about 4 years, and man, I was in the academy at 18, hired as a cop at 19, and man, I was a whippersnapper, dude. Like I was an ornery little fella. I did a lot of fun things. I ran on some special ops teams and did a lot of enjoyable, door kicking, face planting, body throwing, you
right.
name it. I enjoyed it. And then I had a car accident, and the car accident left me paralyzed for a few months. And
Oh
then
wow.
post that, after I got the feeling back in my legs, then it came and found out that I had a heart problem. And the heart
Oh,
problem was a really weird onset because prior to the car accident, I could run 20 miles. And then post car accident, and after all this, I couldn't run 5 blocks without passing out. And so at first the doctors thought it was a degenerative issue that I was actually going to have a shortened life, and they actually gave me 10 years to live. And so I was 23 at the time, and
yeah.
luckily, a few months later, they realized that it was a misdiagnosis and that there was other issues inside of my body, and that's what led to them realizing that my spine had some crinks and some issues in it that was stopping the communication from my heart and my brain together.
Mm,
So, but that whole process required me to retire at 23, and I was basically released on a Wednesday with a nice boot to the butt saying, "Hey, we don't have to keep paying you. It doesn't meet the requirements for the Florida Heart and Lung Act, so you don't get paid. So you're done." And
yeah.
so then it was like, okay, if I'm not going to do this, then what am I going to do? And that's really when I kicked in major gear and really just started pushing in a ridiculous way down the entrepreneurial paths.
Yeah. In that moment when you've just had a car accident, you're 23 years old. You like you're kind of your whole life is kind of from your vantage point, I would imagine it's kind of ruined. It's kind of like, okay, is this whole thing over? Um, what was going through your head at that point?
Man, at that point, I don't know what was not going through my head. It was like, how do I plan? What do I do? Is this permanent? Is this not permanent? I can't walk right now. Oh crap.
Right.
I don't want to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And like, I mean, you name it. The woe is me all the way through to like, I'm going to figure out how to walk. I tried that. Didn't work out very well. You face planted a few times. I mean, you name it. Like
Yeah.
every single thing from insanities to over the top crazy to hey listen, we're going to go conquer something, and even in the moments of like, okay, well, if this is what happens, then I better do something good with it.
Right.
And then when the heart problem came, man, that's when the darkness set in. I call it the darkness. It's the
Mm,
that headspace that's like you sit in this moment where it's like, man, your life is over. I can't be a cop. I can't chase my dreams. I can't do this. And I can't.
yeah.
And if you're not careful, as fast as our brains process, they can process us deep into those dungeons.
Mm,
And so, man, that darkness sat in for a little bit of a short season. And then I had to basically snap myself out and said, oh, hey, listen, if this is going to be the cards that I'm dealt, then I better do something incredible on the backside to make it where I can help other people through the darkness because I've been through it and I achieved success on the other side and I did something
Yeah.
great on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that kind of keep as your North Star throughout the rest of your struggles leading up to where you are now?
There's a lot of North Stars, and I really feel like God has given me the ones I need in the moments.
Mm,
And there was a season where it was like, man, that particular season when I was 23 was, man, I got to get through this so I can help other people through it. And that
right.
was a short run, more of that. Hey, listen, like 6 months to 2 years North Star. And then, life keeps on changing. And so, at one point I married a woman that had a daughter, and providing for that now adopted daughter after we got married
Mm,
was a major North Star. And then when my son was born, man, like talk about a game changer. Is like,
yeah.
man, like I have to be a man that represents what a man should stand for. And now I have a little child that I have to be the example of how to be a man for, and what my life has to look like, and going and getting uncomfortable and doing something different and breaking odds and getting pretty ridiculous in your life, but always by keeping your faith and keeping your foundation in play. And so,
Yeah.
man, the North Stars constantly adapt, and I feel like if you're not careful, you can cling to the wrong North Star for too long.
Yeah. That I've talked to a lot of people who were like people who had kind of a like we'll call it a come to Jesus moment, not necessarily that they came to Jesus, but that they were like, "Oh shoot, I got to get my act together." When they had a kid or when they got married. I think that's generally a helpful thing for guys. Is like, all right, now you got someone else in your life that you have to provide for. Now you better shoulder some responsibility.
Yeah, it is tough, and man, and that's where when I work with younger people, like there's some local private schools that bring me in to talk to their juniors and seniors. Some of them, they've asked me to help with their entrepreneurial programs, and I love that younger generation, the 16, 17, 18, all the way through to
Mm,
to the younger 20s, because I feel like there's so much lostness in that space. There's
mm,
so much pinball approach to life, and there's so much like, oh yeah, I'll get serious when, or I will, I'll lock in when, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And then coupling that with all these expectations from our parents, from the people we were raised with, from all these other things, Jackson, that it basically just it guides us
mm.
sometimes completely in the wrong direction. Just like my dad, man. I love my dad. So I want to make sure that we all know my dad is a very wise man, wise counsel, God fearing, God following, just an incredible dude. But remember, he was raised by broken people too.
Mm,
And so a lot of different generations, we have these things that get pressed upon us, like him saying, hey, pension retirement, pension retirement, pension retirement. When I told him that I was going to start my first business after I had to retire, he said, Nate, listen, I think you need to go get a job that has a pension retirement. And I said, Dad, no, that's not me. I'm going to go build a pension or retirement.
right.
And so those are the things that a lot of these 16 all the way through, mid 20s are still trying to figure out who they really are and navigate what they heard and saw and felt all the way back from childhood and from early days, and the expectations and the social norms and even the cultural norms. Like I just literally had a coaching meeting today with a lady that's from Puerto Rico, and we're talking about how her cultural norms are holding her back from chasing after her future. And it's
Mm,
not current cultural norms, it was what her parents had as cultural norms and what
right.
she saw demonstrated. And so we were dealing with and diagramming all those pieces and how she needs to break away from certain things. And so, man, like that younger generation, I love it. And I love helping people really figure out what is it that you're really built for? What are we chasing after? Let's go, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's 23. You're no longer at the police academy. What business did you decide I'm gonna get into this?
So first I had to figure out how else I needed to be prepared. And I think that's
Mm,
something that a lot of times in people's stories, they miss the preparation. And
yep.
so I'll tell you that when I was a cop, God gave me some great wisdom, and he used my dad, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so he's like, hey, listen, if you're gonna be a cop, that's great, but maybe you should go to school for something else. And so I was going to school for business, going to school for finance, and going to school for like nerd stuff. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm assuming that I'm gonna use this at some point, even if I was gonna be a cop for 20 years. Man, I got hazed. You know how many times that I got called Rook Nerdy and like all kinds of names, because my
Yeah.
real nickname as a cop was Rook Nasty, because I got into some fights and I got some gnarly wins. And so that's where my nickname was Rook Nasty. And then when I started going to school for business and stuff, they're like, all right, Rook Nerdy. And so it kind of changed a little bit. But so the preparation was important. And so by the time that I retired, very shortly after that, I finished my bachelor's, we're working on my master's. And so I was like, you know what, like, great, if I'm going to launch a business, I need to know how to sell. Like, great, I love people. I love talking to people. I can talk to people all day long. But how do I take and influence them to utilize me or my business for a service or a product? And so then I was like, okay, I started researching which companies have great sales programs. Well, I'm not going to name them. It was an insurance company that happened to have a little animal as their logo or whatever, and so their motto, and so it was a blast. I went and worked for like 9 months there, and I learned how to sell. I slayed it. I had a blast, because for me it was a learning period. It wasn't like survival, even though it kind of was, because I was broke. But it was more of like, hey, listen, I was learning all this to go to a better phase of my life. So I did that for about 9 months. And then after that, then I went and I worked inside of a gentleman that owned 12 businesses. And I ran his businesses for him, all of his back end, his financial side. And so I learned the practical side of what I'd learned in school, kind of went through this process. And then right on the other side of that is when I launched my first business.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. The mentoring preparing phase, you mentioned that a lot of people you work with don't go through that phase. Is that because they're like, all right, I've got this idea, let's just go? Or is it like what's going into that decision that they like, okay, I don't need to prepare for this?
So a lot of people get into the entrepreneurial realm with what I call a lack of impulse control. Is
Okay.
they see ideas, or let's this, you meet this realtor. Let's just talk for that. You see a realtor and you're like, dude, this guy's slaying it. He's making 250 to 300. Man, you know what? I'm going to do that. And so then they go online. What does it take to be a realtor? Okay. Oh, 24-hour course, 40-hour course. Next thing you know, they're signed up for a course on being a realtor, and they're chasing. It's like, what are you doing? Or the same thing in
Hold up. Yeah.
insurance, or the same thing in, and they don't ever take this big step back and say, hey, listen, what am I built for?
Hmm.
What is it that I can bring to the table? Not a matter of like, hey, listen, what is Jackson great at? You know, what is this guy that's slaying over here or over there? No. You can't just chase any market and win. You got to figure out what makes you great and what's the skill sets that you bring to the table. That preparation gets missed 99 times out of 100 every
Hmm.
day of the week. And people are just starting this business or that business. Like, oh, it's a great idea. It should be easy. And they have no clue what they're doing. And so the preparation that I see is first know you, and
Hmm.
then know how you could implement yourself inside of any type of industry or what type of industry, and how does that combination really make it where you can scale it, win it, and really achieve something inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Alex Hormozy has a bit about this, that like you see someone who's doing super well in crypto, and he had a friend who was like making millions and millions of dollars a month in cryptocurrency. And he's like, you know what, man, good for you. That's not my skill set. I realize that there are thousands and thousands of hours between me and you, and between your success and where you started. And you don't start out and earn millions of dollars. There's a long trek ahead of you, so you have to kind of love what you're doing to an extent, to
100%.
keep doing it.
Yeah, and it is challenging. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes people are like, man, I'm passionate about.
Hmm.
And they're like, man, I love this or I love that, or I'm passionate about these things. And next thing you know, they try to turn it into a job. I'll be honest with you, Jackson. I love fishing. I'm passionate about fishing, man. There's nothing better than getting 20 miles offshore and hooking up on a big fish. But what is the fastest way of killing that? It's turning it into a job.
Yeah. Yep.
It like for me, it's like, no, that's a passion. That's not my purpose. And so people get these things mixed up. And just because they're excited about something, man, I'm easily excitable. I get excited about a lot of things. Doesn't mean it's a business I should chase after.
Mhm.
And so when you're working down these paths and you figure out, wait a second, what are the ways that I could implement this tool, me, into a business market? And then what does that look like? How
Yeah.
can I go after and disrupt a market or change the way a market is seen or change the way this services clients? And that's exactly what I did. Is I went into the services realm and I went into the financial services because I felt there was this big gap. There's a bunch of nerds that like to play with their calculators in their corner, and nobody liked to explain things to the people, and the people are always confused of like, why can't I see the nerd? Because they don't want to talk to me, and then the administrative staff doesn't know how to explain it, and so I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm not getting proactive advice. All these complaints. And I started researching complaints. I said, okay, hey, listen, I'm going to go into this market. I'm going to fix this problem.
Hmm.
And so when I went into the market, it was like, I'm going to go with a people first mentality. People first, money will come. And I'm going to be here to more educate my clients rather than just take the money from my clients.
Right.
And so it was a great process. And so, I mean, the business grew from 2008 all the way up until 2024 when I sold it. We were on the Inc. 5000 the last 4 years in a row at my ownership. And man, it was awesome, dude. It was great and a great exit. And we just focused on the core pillars of doing that industry the way it should be done, the way that my skill sets went into that industry. My people skills, how
Right.
I see relationships, how I see people, how I see the need for the gap filler. And then how do I build an entire team? We had almost 50 people inside of that one business when I sold it. And it was based upon people. Yeah, you got your nerds. I had my nerds that like to sit in the corner, play with their calculators, but I also had my people that could be the translators. And so you work on building a team based upon what is your vision and your mission. And then was I passionate about tax and accounting and book? No.
Yeah.
But was it something that I could take all my skill sets and deploy it and change the way that that industry is seen or perceived, and then build a business that was 100% referral based off of relationships
Hmm.
and hit the goals? Yeah, man, that's boom, target every day of the week.
Right. When people are thinking about like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Like, do I want to pursue this career long term, or there's this other thing that I'm interested in, but I don't know if I want to pursue it long term. How do you think about? Because there's that old saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Is that true? Or should you not work at the thing you love, you're super passionate about? Like, what's the balance there?
Man, like I told you, I didn't love accounting. I didn't love taxes,
Yeah.
but I loved who I did it for.
Right. Okay.
And so my purpose was to have an impact in people's lives and help eliminate stress in an area where there was a massive disconnect and huge stressors. And by doing that, I was able to impact people beyond the numbers, beyond the money. And so then I was able to build some great relationships. I was able to help a lot of people go through some really hard times. I was able to like be there in the corner for people in
Yeah.
their darkest of days, when without having those relationships built through that style business would have never happened. And so I would tell people that it's not always loving what you do. It might be loving what you or who you do it for.
Mm. Yeah. I think that if you start a business focused on blessing the customer, I think you will have far more success generally than someone who starts a business because they had an idea that they really want to pursue.
Yeah, and you do have the occasional like the cool tech platforms and things like that.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
now they do serve a client for a very specific purpose. And so they're bridging a gap. It might be less relationship driven, but there's always a solution, and a lot of times, there's always the oddballs. But when you're talking about service-based companies, you're talking about people really finding success. The best realtors that I've ever met relationship based, love people. The
Mm-hmm.
best, mortgage brokers, same thing. You're talking about any service based, the best attorneys I've ever met. I know there's not a ton of them. I'm just joking. But the best attorneys I've ever met, man, they actually love on people. And so when you're talking about it, or at least the people that are on their side, the other side,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing. But like, when you're talking about if you're in the people business, or even if you're not, even if you're in a different realm, I mean, think about like Facebook was to keep people connected. Like,
Right.
what are these things? Zoom, Riverside, like these are all platforms to connect people to information, to process, to knowledge base, to whatever the case. It's all people business. And
Yeah.
so, you do got platforms that aren't so much, but in the same sense, like the more the people are focused on impacting lives, man, the faster things grow.
Yeah. Yeah. The I really like that link between uh the people that you love helping, and then like you kind of find any avenue you can to go help them. Like what are your abilities? But really, it's about the people. Um, when you're advising people who are starting these businesses, um, is it always the case that the people who have the people lovers are the ones who succeed in the end?
Not always, not always. And it's funny because a lot of times you can have the people lovers that turn out to be distracted by people.
Hmm.
And so, it's being real with yourself, and then figure out, hey, are you intended to be the sole primary owner of a business, or do you need to partner up? And I meet a lot of people that they do not have what it takes to be a sole practitioner, sole proprietor, to really build and launch a business.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they couldn't buy a business that's already in operation and take over
Right.
specific roles. But a lot of times when you are beast moding a startup, and if you don't have the funds to hire everybody, you better be well rounded. And so if not, you're going to struggle and you're probably going to fail in at least the first one. Maybe the second one, you're going to learn from your mistakes. But I mean, just like the consulting meeting I had today, it was like, man, like, hey, listen, you need to consider either having a lot of funds ready for more practical day-to-day consulting, or you need to be ready to partner up because you don't have what it takes. And I'm brutally honest with people. Like,
Yeah.
this is where you want to go. You're stuck in the weeds. You're not able to go beyond. You're a half visionary and you're overly analytical. So you're going to sit here and stuck in the weeds, and you're going to service people that you shouldn't be servicing. And so, like, that kind of process is like, no, like, you have to have that balance, and you have to figure out where do you really sit, where your skill sets are at. And that goes back to being real with who you are and knowing who you are and the skill
Mm.
sets you bring to the table and your weaknesses.
Yeah. Let's talk about what it does take to build a successful business. It seems to me that one of the things that's required is an almost stupid level of ignorance, in the sense that you just keep doing the thing that you know is right, even though it's not succeeding as much as you hoped, or it's not succeeding at all. Right? You just keep doing the thing. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, it's there's a balance there because, like, the thing might be the right thing, but the thing might also be the wrong thing, and you're running in circles. And so
Yeah.
you have to have the right advisement. If you are going to keep chasing the thing, you better get confirmation that that's the thing that you're supposed to be chasing.
Hmm.
And so, a lot of times people keep on pushing, and sometimes they're just like 1 inch, one more push away from that breakthrough. But sometimes they're literally running on the wrong side of the wall, and all they have to
Yeah.
do is do like a left turn, and then they're through the wall. Make sense? And so it's just like they're running past 20 doorways. They're like, dude, you're like, there. And that's what I think the most important thing about getting the right coach and consultant in your life
Mm.
is somebody that can see and help you find these areas of weaknesses and see what you don't see, because they're 20 steps ahead of you on the journey. And just like the meeting today, like I helped her see all this kind of stuff. And I was like, she's like, wow, how do you see this? I'm like, well, that's just the way my brain works because of all my
Right.
experience and all the businesses that I've helped. I can see what other people can't because I've been in it. I've been through it. And that's the thing, is like, when you're stuck in it, it is very hard to work on it.
Mm.
And so that is where a consultant, the right consultant, because a lot of consultants are failed CEOs, they're failed CFOs, they're failed in many ways, or sometimes even failed business owners that just happen to be like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to be a business consultant.
Yeah.
But, and that's where having the right consultant and making sure that you have that guidance can really help you navigate. People like, oh, I don't want to spend that money. You're not spending, you're investing. And when you're investing in the shortcuts, you're investing in the direct routes through the storms, you're really going to save in the long run, because you're no longer going to be making all these mistakes that maybe they've already made, or they've seen 300 other people make back here, that they can save you from a wasted, 1 to 2 years and a lot of spent money.
Yeah, I think there's I think it's wise to always have other people. I mean, my father has sold many successful businesses, and he's always like, you have to go to advice for other people, from other people. You can't, you can't find this on your own. But I think there are probably a lot of early entrepreneurs who are just like, I'm gonna gut it out and do it myself. Um, the and I wonder if part of that is like they look at the stories of like Steve Jobs with Apple or Bill Gates with Microsoft, and they don't see the person behind them that's coaching them, and
Yep.
they're like, okay, I'm just gonna do what they did, because if they did it, I can do it, right? I'll just figure it out. School of hard knocks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we all have those days. And, there's also, for lack of better words, the podcast warriors. They
Yep.
literally jump through, 300 podcasts in a week. And they're like, I'm going to deploy all these ideas. Well, they don't understand that those ideas are specific for all these circumstances, and the dominoes line up. And only when you have the right dominoes lining up can you hit that last step that make
Right.
them all fall. And so, like with that is like, man, you got to really figure out the expertise inside of your space,
Mm.
and like, where are you trying to go and who can guide you. And it's also, man, like, who do you like? And don't mean it bad, but you got to be working with somebody that like, and trust. How you trust them is because of their resume, where they've been and what they've been able to do. But how you like them, like, you got to be like, hey, listen, like, I got to get on this call with Jackson, once or twice a week. Like, I got to like Jackson. If I don't like
Right.
Jackson, and if Jackson's the one guiding me, then it's just going to be like, oh my gosh, this guy. Can you imagine the dry eye guy doing consulting? Is like, yes, now it's time to, oh my gosh, like, that'd be
Be the
murder.
worst.
But
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you got to kind of walk through and see who you jam with. And it's also like, I like telling some stories with my clients, like, very quickly, like 1 minute stories. It helps them remember the process or whatever I'm trying to teach them. And so it's like, okay, hey, remember this. This is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced. Boom. Hey, remember the time when I failed 20 times? I don't want you to fail 20 times. Let's go. Because life isn't just about the successes, man. The successes, that's just a resume. But dude,
Yeah.
talk about some major failures, man. Like, let's go. Losing $300,000 in a matter of, I don't know, 10 days. Like, I've made some major mistakes, but it's all about the end result. And then
Yeah.
how can I guide people through the journey so that they don't make the same mistakes, have the same failures, and then they're able to achieve some killer results on the back end.
Yeah. When you were starting your business, starting and running your businesses, did you have coaches that you were going to?
So at that time, they weren't as easily available.
Hmm.
And so this was back 2008. Like, coaching and consulting really wasn't a big thing. It was kind of like behind the scenes. It was like more in the major, like the top, 500 space kind of thing. It was less available to entrepreneurs. And so I had a group of entrepreneurs that we would get together, and we all started a business about the same time, and we would kind of pin ideas back and forth and back and forth. But then I would read all kinds of books. If I could get educational material, man, I would get it. Same thing. You talk about Steve Jobs. You talk about these guys back then. Like, there wasn't people to call on. There wasn't
Mm-hmm.
these coaches and consultants that were as available. Now, there's that pro con. There's a lot of coaches and consultants available, but most of them aren't worth anything. Most of them you shouldn't pay. And that's where you walk through the process of having to navigate which one to trust. And that's a harder spot. And so that's, I don't know which one's easier, not having one or having too many available. So, but at that time there was not. So we basically we chewed down books, man. We chewed down books, encouraged each other, helped each other, and
Yeah.
just kind of walk through that process together.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people kind of like that idea of like, okay, I don't want to have to. I wonder if it part of it is maybe a pride issue that like I don't want to have to attribute part of the success of my company to X person. Like I want to just do it all on my own, like to my consultant. I just want to do this
Yeah.
myself. Um,
And you know what? To those people that, I mean, there is that aspect of that self pride. Okay, but that's awesome. But that's saying, hey, listen, I'm willing to accept a harder road, more difficulties, maybe, and probably less profits, or at least less profits sooner. Like, it doesn't make sense because I think a part of who we are is, yeah, I could read 1,000 books, but what if I could find the guy that's read 1,000 books, applied it into business, and succeeded in business, and then he could come and look at my situation and maybe solve it in an hour consulting a month.
yeah,
And like, wow, how much time did I save? How much more can I apply? How much more time with my family? How much more, see what I'm saying? Like, there's so much there, so many different ways of looking at it. And I guess, the one thing I've learned is the more I know is the less I really know.
hmm
And like, man, this world, we ain't got no time for pride. I've seen the worst of it, and I've seen great guys fall because of it, and I've seen great women fall because of it as well. So pride is not just one gender; it's all over the place. And
yeah, yeah,
man, it is tough, and that's where, man, I always tell people, hey, listen, I'm good. I'm not God. I got two O's, and that just means that I have not got it figured out yet, but I'm really good at what I do.
yeah. There is a certain level of pride though that is necessary to like, okay, I'm not going to quit on this. Maybe that's not pride, and maybe a better way of saying it is just like heart. That like I'm not gonna give up. I will not let this beat me.
Yeah, it's using pride from that standpoint. I think it's like self pride. Like, hey, listen, like I'm gonna conquer this. Like, but it's grit, resilience,
Mm,
and all these pieces of like, hey, listen, like we're gonna move forward no matter what. And I'm gonna take every tree to the face, baseball bats, and you name it, and I'm gonna keep on getting up because you can't break me. You can beat me, but you ain't gonna break me. And so I'm gonna keep on going, and I'm gonna find success, even if it's in the midst of a lot of learning experiences, failures, and walking through and really going after that success point.
yeah. Um, that hungry mindset we were talking about just a little bit ago, is that something that you are born with, or is this like are a lot of these things, these mindset, mentality, personality traits, are some of them developable, or is it mostly like these are the tools you're given?
No, I mean, I believe 100% that people can become hungry, even if they're not naturally hungry.
Mm,
I think it comes down to awareness. And so awareness is found a lot of times through life experiences. And so the awareness of needing or wanting to go after a greater version of you or a greater outcome for you. And so when you're talking about like that hunger, the problem is a lot of times people lack what I call their fuel. They lack the ability or the self awareness or even the emotional maturity to be able to go back and figure out what they're really here for and really driven to achieve and why. The why is the biggest thing. I call that your fuel. So
mhm,
sometimes people have to go back down into their dungeon, to the hard spaces, to the hard times, to the trauma, the drama, the difficulties, and they got to lock in there of something that maybe they experience that they don't want other people to have to experience. Maybe it might be they had to go through a life problem and they're in the midst of it and getting out of it. It's like I told you, like my darkness, like that darkness that I was in, man, that was super dark. That was the hardest point in my life. And that's the only time in my life that I contemplated suicide. It's the only time in my life that I was really struggling.
yeah,
And so the hope that I locked into was it's got to be for more than just me.
right,
And
yeah,
so for me, man, like my entire life, dude, I want to bring hope to people. I want to help people. I want to guide people. I want to show up for people. And when you show up for people, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's a time suck sometimes. And but in the same sense, I got this guy, man. He's struggling right now, and he shot me this text message about 20 minutes before we jumped on. And he's like, man, I feel like I'm in this brain fog. I'm going through this family situation. I don't know what's going on, man. I didn't have time to call him, but I called him.
Yeah.
I needed to do more things to be more ready, and God said, "No, be there for him." And so I said, I don't have time to have an hour-long conversation with this guy. So give me wisdom to give him direct impact. Boom, fast smack, in push him and help him get back in line and help him get his brain fog removed. Help him, and that's exactly what happened. It was like an 8-minute phone call, and then I was able to still have time for what I need to because God gave me that exact wisdom in that moment, and that wisdom was a remembrance of the times in my life when I went through that. And what did I lock into with hope in those times in my life? What did I lock into when God had me go through seasons?
Hmm.
And God brought it back, and I encouraged him with it. And that was, man, it shook him up, woke him up, locked him back in.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not easy, man.
No, it's not. I when I look out at social media's motivation subgenre, a lot of it I think is driven by the opposite of what you're describing. You're describing a like, I don't want other people to have to go through the pain that I suffered. I think that a lot of social media's motivation is, I'm suffering, therefore, like, screw everyone else. Like, you guys are the worst. I utterly reject you, because you haven't helped me through this suffering. Um, I am just going to like compress into this indestructible little ball, that you can't beat. That won't stop rolling.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like mastering this individuality in a way that is like, Batman, Superman, like the superhero. I'm going to be the superhero of my story. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Watch me mentality. That's not going to give you the fuel for the long term and great. You want to curl
Mm.
up in a ball and become like this incredible Hulk. That's awesome. It's not going to go very far because
Yeah,
where in any realm of success in history has a single man been consistent and constant with success? It's not one single man
yeah,
besides Jesus, but
yeah.
that's besides the point. One
He's an
actual
exception.
human man. Yeah.
Yeah,
It no, it's people. It is people across some of the greatest of all times, all the goats. You talk about war, you talk about biblical, you talk about every single historical aspect. There's people. It's not one.
yeah,
And so, what makes you think, not you, Jackson, but whoever, think that they are so freaking good that they're going to be able to take on their life by themselves as a ball of fire and go after and really achieve their greatness?
yeah.
It's not happening.
No, even Tom Brady threw interceptions.
But Tom Brady, let's talk about Tom Brady, the GOAT right there.
Yep,
He would be nothing if he didn't have that line. If he didn't have the offensive line
yep,
holding back the defense, and he would be the first one to give credit to those dudes.
yeah, yeah. And I also think there's an element of it, that like when you compress yourself, so that things bounce off you, you it it becomes much more difficult for you to learn, to grow, and to because in different phases of your life you're called to different things, and you must have different skill sets. And if you are always this infinitely small point, that can't be compressed and can't be like, you're never going to, um, develop new skills.
You can't be a rock and a sponge at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's one is incapable of real growth, real development, real absorption of new knowledge and new openness. And how we learn a lot of times, yeah, you can go direct. Okay, great. You want to be that ball of fire. Well, don't read a book because the book's not you. So just sit there in your own fun and excitement and just think through your thoughts and let's see how smart you get.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. The ball of fire thing. I wonder how, In your experience, how many of the people who have been very successful in business are balls of fire, like type A personalities? And how many of them are just kind of not that?
Well, okay, so we have to be very careful with type A because I am a type A. If you go with that definition, let's kind of revert it back to like a disc, like a
Okay.
personality profile, because it's a little bit broken down different. So D is drive, driven, hungry, going after it. What's the coupler? What's your second? So I'm a DI. So interpersonal. That's my second driver. They're very close. So if one's normally like a 43, the other one is going to be like a 42. Like
Hmm.
it's like hand in hand. It's like right there. And then my C and my S are almost non-existent. That's besides the point. I'm not very well rounded, if you can't tell. But in a nutshell, like great. Like if you're like a D, like I consider myself like a super D when it comes time for like the disc. I'm like way up there. But my I is way up there too,
Yeah.
which means I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to build relationships. So if somebody is like a DCSI with the disc and the I is the lowest and the I is almost non existent, that's more of like the ball of fire that you're communicating, where
Mm.
the I is way down here and the D is all the way up here. So then you got the C, which is like the structure, and then the S is like the consistency, and then the I is way down here. So it's like, yeah, they're gonna consistently stay in their suck for a very long time. It's gonna be tough, and they're gonna burn bridges. They're gonna destroy relationships, and it's those are the kind of people that normally don't go very far. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of type A's like myself that I will make less money by building better relationships in the process than choose to make more money and destroy relationships. And
Mm.
so it keeps me from turning into that ball of fire by the I being such a high driver. So that's where when people are like type A, I like to go to more of a personality profile that's kind of more consistent because it's like you got primary, secondary, and then you got tertiary and all that other stuff. But the
Yeah.
first two are your main two drivers.
Yeah. Yeah. And the purpose of life is not to make money, as surprising that as that may seem to some people. Um, I mean, the Westminster Catechism defines the purpose of life as to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Um, that has a lot of connotations for how you actually live out your life. And what it's one of the things it sounds like you're saying is like, realize your skills and then realize your weaknesses, and as you know, throughout your life, what have kind of been those weaknesses that you've had to overcome?
Oh man, like how much time we got? I've got a lot of weaknesses, and that's where being self real and like self aware, and then you take pride and you write your pride on a roll of toilet paper and you flush it down the toilet. That's it. Pride's
Yep.
got to go. So,
Yep.
I mean, everywhere from impulse control issues when I was younger, of like, man, like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go there. Let's go here. Like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this. Let's go. I mean, like, impulse control is like one of the most vital pieces that maturity a lot of times brings. And if maturity doesn't bring it, then the failures along the way bring it.
Hmm.
And so that's where I mean, like the impulse control. I'm very excitable. I love adventure. And so sometimes, earlier on, it was like, okay, I would take risks in things that were like, okay, yeah, that one turned out really well. That one turned out really bad. And
Yeah.
so sometimes when you talk about the adventure side with the impulse control or the lack of impulse control at times, sometimes you're pulling out the gun and shooting, pulling the trigger a little too fast. And so like that slowdown came with maturity. And so when you're talking about those pieces and bring in wise counsel. Wise counsel, here's the biggest thing is like, yeah, you can have a business consultant coach. That's great. But who else do you have in your corner? Do you have a
Hmm.
pastor you can trust? Do you have, I call it your corner. So who else is in your corner supporting you during your great days and during your
Yeah.
hard days? Give me another example. Who's your celebrator? One thing I completely failed to do, and to this day really bothers me because I still struggle with it. I never celebrated wins. To me, it's been this checklist, and it's like my goals, my ambitions, everything has been a checklist. And so I was
Yep.
like, check, bachelor's degree, master's degree. Oh, cool. Yeah. making money. Oh man, I'm making that much money. Okay. Oh wow, that's awesome. Okay, great. I've got a team of this big. Checklist, 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 checklist. No celebration. I
Yeah.
didn't have what I call a celebrator in my corner that would force me to break up my habit and go out and really enjoy. Say, hey, Nate, listen, dude, I will tell you this. I set a goal in business to do a hog hunt in Texas from the helicopters, where you're, the
Yeah,
good
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I set that goal and I achieved that goal like 4 years ago. And did I ever reward myself? No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
You
And
haven't
you know
yet been
how
on the
many?
hog hunt?
I have not. You know how many of those things I've set the goals and rewards and I never rewarded myself because I didn't have the celebrator in my life. And
Yeah.
so then it's also like who's holding you accountable to make sure. So, okay, let me be honest with you. Balance does not exist. I don't care what people say. People are, you should have a balanced life. Okay. You talk me through anybody in the Bible that was balanced. You talk me through Billy Graham. That joker was not balanced.
No.
No. So people that are passionate and driving hard are never balanced, but you have to have boundaries.
Right.
So my boundaries are I will get up early in the morning. I require myself to sleep 6 hours a night. Where did that boundary come from? That boundary came from me only sleeping 3 hours a night and getting put in the hospital for a week. So I didn't have a boundary. Another failure. There you go. And so you talk about weaknesses. I'm extreme. I will go. I will literally sleep and 3 hours and just keep on pushing and fry all my adrenal glands. And next thing you know, I'm a week in the hospital recovering. But that's many years ago. I think I was like 28, 29 or something like that. So many much moons. But, people are talking about balance. No, there's no balance. You better be excited and chasing after something. You can have boundaries, though. At night, I'm always home with my family. Very rarely do I take business trips that take me away from my family. Do I go to after hours stuff? No, man. I'm always like, hey, listen, I'm going to grind hard up till 6 o'clock, but there's my boundary. I will not work past 6 o'clock. Never balanced, though, because my life I'm extreme.
Right.
But boundaries. So, I mean, like, man, you name it. Every different area of my life, man, I've made financial mistakes. I've made relationship mistakes. I have made every mistake possible. And, we would have to be here all afternoon to really record all of my mistakes.
Talk to me about some of those failures. What were kind of the big ones specifically in business, and what were your takeaways from those?
So in my first few years of business, this is probably my second year, I had a client that had to navigate some hard financial times. And they asked me if they could sell me their business for a very low fee. And in that process, I was like, oh yeah, entrepreneurial, like I could build anything kind of thing. And so
why not?
yeah, exactly. Why not? Let's go. I didn't take the time to really think of what it could distract me from. I was only looking at the potential upside of what it could bring. And so 6 months later, as I was deep in building this company that didn't have anything to do with my main company, and it was just this huge shiny object that was like an opportunity, but it shouldn't have been my opportunity. And that's where, when you're talking about wisdom and you're talking about growth, you're talking about that impulse control issues that I had was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, of course. Let's go. Versus I should have taken a step back and looked at my entire goal, my mission, my long-term, what were my plans? Where am I going to take this first business I started? And how does this other business fall in line? And it didn't. It was a complete distraction that I really wasted a lot of time and a lot of momentum. Just a huge learning experience. And that's where I tell people, like, impulse control, remove the shiny objects, have accountability for anything you want to do. But it did teach me a very valuable lesson that I learned from. And so this was year 2 in business. And I said, okay, I'm not going to launch any other businesses until I get to year 10. And so I literally, every single time I had an idea, I just put it in a notebook. I created a little notebook and I set it aside. I created a notebook, set it aside. And to this day, I still have probably about 150 business ideas in 150 different notebooks sitting over there on a shelf. And it's great because like I meet people that are clients of mine or potential clients, and I literally give them business ideas because they have all the pieces that it connects with. I don't. And so it's incredible to see how it's came around full circle. But that boundary that I had with myself, never balanced, that boundary I had made it where I could hyper focus and fixate on the one business and really get excellent at that one business and how to build
Right.
teams and put systems and processes. And that, man, I tell you what, that was a huge mistake early on. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs make that. But at that point, I didn't have the impulse control to say no. And man, massive error.
Yeah. Yeah. The boundaries you're talking about, are those the kinds of things that you set for yourself as kind of like a, you have your goal for your life, and then you have your boundaries as far as like, okay, these are the things I'm not going to do. How much are those two tied together?
Oh, they're tied in every way, in every facet. All my planning boundaries are in place. For instance, you know all the stories. You got these top executives that, man, they're slaying it in their career, but they're 450 pounds on the verge of a heart attack, and their
Yep.
kids hate them, and their family doesn't even know who they are. So where were their boundaries? They had no boundaries. They had no
Right.
boundaries with what they put in their mouth, how they spent their time, but yet they were really good at work. Is
Yeah.
that really success? Nah.
No. No, not really. And um there's two sides of that coin. One is the American, the classic American businessman of like, I'm just going to work, 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 work to the detriment of my family. But I'm going to leave them millions and millions and millions of dollars. On the other side, there's maybe it's more of a Gen Z, my generation type mentality, which is just like, I just want to live free and like live my life, and I don't really care about hard work or doing something big with my life. Um, as you're mentoring um, parents who are raising their, these are people who are CEOs, entrepreneurs, but they're also parents. How are you suggesting that they raise kids who are going to be really great entrepreneurs and hard workers and all of that?
I mean, the first thing I tell them, be careful what you say. Be careful every single thing that comes out of your mouth. Expectations, even to be
Hmm.
an entrepreneur, that's an expectation in itself. Like I
Yep.
tell my son all the time, he's 14. I tell him all the time, like, listen, I don't expect you to be an entrepreneur. You can be, but if that's what you feel like doing, just because that's what I've done, and because I'm passionate about entrepreneurs, naturally I know that he might have a bend towards it only because that's what he sees that I like, I love. And so I'm very careful with that. Say, hey, listen, dude, like, you want to go into culinary? Go into culinary. You want to do video? I don't care. You want to do this? You want to do that? Cool. Like, you figure out you. We have to be so careful on what we instill in our kids. The other side is be careful your extremes, because the next generation will go the opposite way.
Mm.
And that's a lot of what you see right now with the different generations, is because there was all these extremes that they didn't have boundaries. They weren't home. They were traveling all the time. They were at the office till 9 o'clock. You have dads that would kiss their kids to bed after they're asleep and then kiss them goodbye while they're still asleep the next morning. Where were your boundaries, dude? Like, and no wonder the next gen doesn't want to work. They
Yeah.
saw the destruction firsthand. And so remember, it's a pendulum, and they swing in so many different facets. But you look at one generation to the next, and next thing you know, the next generation is going to try to fix the problems of the prior generation because you were never there. And so why would they lock down to a career that required them to work 80 hours a week? Man, that's torture. That's destructive.
Yeah. How did you think about setting boundaries? Um, how did you come to that conclusion that like, okay, I need a stopping point?
I tell you what, it's that lack of impulse control. That lack of impulse control has to be controlled. And so
Hmm.
the only way to control it is by putting strict boundaries in place. Like, here's the acceptables and here's the non acceptables. And so the problem is I didn't think through all of it. I was like, man, I got to stop working by 6 o'clock at night. I didn't think I can't wake up before a certain amount of time. And so then it was just kind of pushed. I would go to bed at 10 o'clock and I would get up at 4 o'clock. And then I would go to bed at 10 o'clock and then I would get up at 3 o'clock. Ooh, I got more done. Okay. Oh, wait a second. Then that impulse of like, look at the results, look at the results, look at the results. Then it's like, I went to bed at 10 o'clock and I got up at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's 3 hours, 7 days a week. Brutal beating until I was blacking out and couldn't stay conscious one morning. Fried all my adrenal glands. Like lack of boundaries. I thought
Yeah.
about everybody else. I thought about the family. But I didn't think about me. And so that's where it's like, you got to look at all the counterbalances of what happens when you don't have boundaries. And that's the biggest thing that we got to keep in mind here is like a
Yeah.
lack of boundaries creates destruction. And where does it create destruction? If you don't know, it's going to show up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's helpful to have like coaches, other people in your life that you can go to and like, hey, you've been down this path, or you know people who have, or you have more experience than I do, different experience than I do. Um, what am I not seeing? Right.
100%.
Um, did you when you were running your company, how much of the company's success was directly linked to like your outlook um on life, on business, on all of these things?
Man, I mean, you think that the success of the company is always linked to the driver, to one extent or another. I was a big part of the vision for it, but I was also more instrumental in the foundations that needed to be put in place. I'm a gear wheel guy, nuts and bolts. Like let's build it, but in the same sense, it goes back to the planning. Like we talked about in the beginning, the planning was right and the wisdom came from God. Like, hey, listen, like, how are we going to go into the right industry based upon who I am, and how are we going to fix it, and how are we going to provide it different so that it is a beast? And that's where, when you have the right foundation, even if in the early days you can only cast a vision so far, as soon as you start moving down that pathway, then you can cast the greater vision and you can cast beyond. And I think that's the biggest thing is, was I instrumental? Of course, but it's more a matter of constantly being open, knowing that in this moment, I don't know everything. And so
Right.
as I move down the pathway, I have to look up and I got to look out and I got to say, okay, where are we really going? Where are we really going? And constant planning based upon the original planning, because that's how we got started.
Yeah. I also wonder if there's a certain level of aloofness, maybe, is the right term, that a CEO should have about um, his business, so that he can see it from a bird's eye perspective and see where things are going. But like if you look at, you know, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, they don't really, they're not super in the weeds, and they're not super like, they're kind of like this thing, a force that you can't really, like, you don't really see it that often, but you just know is always in the background, working and pushing and directing and moving. Has that
100%.
been your experience in your businesses as well, and the people that you've coached, that like the CEO should be a little bit separated from the rest?
Yeah, it's you got to always work yourself out from every standpoint. I got too far in the weeds in my first 5 to 7 years, like too far in it. And then I spent the next years delegating, building teams, learning the best way to build teams. And just, it's constantly like back paddling a little bit in a good way. It's like you're in it, you learn it, you figure out where you want to go. And then you got to be like, okay, people. And then you kind of look in it again and you do the same thing over and over again. And that's where each phase of your business, you got to constantly work yourself out, because if a business is ever to be sellable, you got to make sure that it doesn't require you at the center of it. If it's ever going to be something that you want to have freedom because of it, you can't put a ball and chain around your ankles by making the business rely on you at every single point. So that's
Right.
one of the hardest things in small business, especially in the service-based businesses, because in the beginning, you're building a demand for me, and then you got to make it more of a demand for we. And so that's kind of
Right.
that back and forth. It's a tough juggle. And then you grow and scale and things start moving faster. So naturally, what do us entrepreneurial type people do? We jump in and we help. We help our team. Next thing you know, we're back in the business and we got to work ourselves back out. And then next thing you know, we're scaling it. Okay, oh my gosh, we got to go from here to here. In order to do that, I got to be the implementer for a season. Cool,
Mm.
you be the implementer. Next thing you know, you got to work yourself back out. So there's that tug and pull at different phases in business. Now, near the end, we had a great leadership team. We had a great, set of teams and team leads and managers. And through that process, it was more, we could go from idea to full deployment a lot faster because I could have the idea and I could grab the team and say, go, 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 go. And next thing you know, a few weeks later, it's all moving. And so it's
Yeah.
like from idea to realization was a lot faster and required less of me. So I could, in that season, I could work more on the business than in the business.
Yeah. How do you work yourself out as a CEO to get where you get a little above the clouds?
Every industry is different, man. Like every single industry, every single service. And it's just more a matter of figuring out how to work it and how to figure out what services you want to go after. And for me, what I did is I went back to the basics. What was the greatest things that I brought to the table in the beginning that made the business start out strong and become instantaneously successful? And then I broke that down into pieces, into skill sets, and kind of blocked them together. And then I figured, okay, wait a second. Most of the time people fail because they try to find another them. So Nate's not going to find another Nate because Nate's great, but he's also broken in certain ways that are good and bad. And he's got his issues, which are good and bad. And he's got his quirks. I'm a weird cat, man. And so I'm never going to find another Nate. And if so, he's going to be running his own company. Makes sense? And so I got to figure out how to build another Nate, just not with a Nate. And so
Yeah.
what I did is I started identifying people that could, between the four of them, replace Nate.
Hmm.
And then it went from, this is the greater version of Nate. This is Nate in action. Okay, great. This guy is technical, but he's even more technical than Nate. This person is great with relationships, and he is incredible with relationships. A little bit less D, a little bit more I. And so he's incredible with relationships. Oh my gosh, this person is great with follow through. This, you see what I'm saying? Like each person had their skill sets. And so what
Right.
I did is I created the four, and then out of the four, I developed four teams.
Yeah.
And so now I took Nate and I multiplied Nate in abundance by going with a very strategic approach. And then that's just in that one area. That doesn't include all the other team members that were there for other reasons or just completion of service. And so in there, man, like figuring out how to walk it through. Because guess what? If you just fulfill teams to service the clients, what happens when there's a problem? Everybody comes back to the CEO. I built what I called a utility team. A utility team was my problem solving team. They literally flexed in. So before any problems came to me, it went through them. And if they couldn't handle it, and only when they couldn't handle it, then it would come to me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. As a CEO, as you are um, going through you're taking on the brunt of the difficulty. You're going through the hardest times. It is easy from the outside to be like, oh yeah, I could do the really hard thing. How do you practice so that when that really hard moment comes or that really hard series of moments come, you are prepared?
Man, preparing for the hard moments. Jeez, man, like that is, that's like, hey, practice taking a 2x4 to the face. It's like the only way to practice is to take it. And so I never wish failure on anybody, but deciding to take action that is hard daily in every area of your life is the only preparation.
Hmm.
And to go super nerd, let's talk super nerd for a second. We all
Yeah.
have what's considered a mid-cingulate cortex.
Okay.
And so that cortex, every time you give in to not doing the hard, it shrinks. Every time you take action despite your desire not to, now it grows. It's a cortex in our brain. It shrinks and grows depending on your decision maker. So you look at people that are morbidly obese, naturally that cortex is probably smaller. You look at high performing athletes, guess what? It's probably bigger. And so how do you make sure that that cortex is always ready to fire and always ready to say yes to the hard? It's by doing the hard and making that decision day in and day out and going after it. And that starts with get up when your alarm goes off. Don't snooze it. Okay, you get up. What is your first part of your routine? Is it reading the Bible? Is it going to the gym? Is it going to do handstands, push-ups, whatever it is? Every time you say no to that, guess what? Cortex is shrinking, dude. So what do we got to do? We got to make it bigger. How do you make it bigger? By saying yes when you don't want to. And so you got to do the hard day in and day out, because it's not just a feel good. I'm going to do the hard stuff. No, it's a cortex that grows and shrinks, period.
Yeah. And there's a certain, like, you can go too far on this. You can like love the pain so much that you just all you do is David Goggins. Like there's never any joy or anything.
Remember that word boundaries?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I've heard Goggins speak. I mean, like Goggins has in my opinion, a great heart. I think he uses a specific tool as an outlet for all of what has happened in his life, and that's how it comes out. And man, like I don't want to say anything bad about the dude, but for me, I don't want to go through 10 knee replacements. I'm not sure what he's up to now, but like I think that's, in my opinion, a little too extreme. There's a lack of boundaries. And so for me, especially the life I live and also the life I want to encourage other people to live, boundaries.
Yeah.
Figure out what that is and don't go stupid. I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm just saying just don't go stupid in your own life. Like,
just don't go stupid. Yeah.
Just don't go stupid. Because
just in general, that's good advice.
I mean, I went stupid. I went from sleeping 8 hours a night to 6 hours a night to 5 hours a night to 3 hours a night. That's like Goggins right there. Like, let's go. Come on. 1 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing, lazy? Get up. Let's go. Like that's where I was at in that season of my life. And it just fried my adrenal glands. And I was like, never again. I'm not doing that. Got to have boundaries.
Yep.
And so I did a bunch of research. 6 hours is a sweet spot. 6 hours a night, and it will never fry again, basically. And I've been doing 6 hours a night since, and I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Easy as that. And there's a certain joy in those moments of those really hard moments of like, I'm in it. Like, this is the hard thing. I'm here. Like, thank goodness that I have made it to this difficulty. I've graduated to achieve the next level of hard. That you kind of have to have, I think, to see the longer term.
Yeah, it's like accepting that the pain and the growth have to go together.
Right.
And for me, it's funny. I was saying, because man, I've had a lot of physical pain. Man, I've ripped off both biceps, had to have them anchored back into my bones. I mean, you name it. I've had a lot of crazy things. I've wrecked motorcycles, 27 car accidents. I mean, some nut stuff.
Good night.
Yeah, it's
You must be a disaster to insure.
Well, the good news, I don't need life insurance anymore, so we're good.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that in my life, I have learned to accept the pain as proof that I'm living and moving forward. And even to a point where I do have a weird relationship with pain. I kind of got like this sick and twisted enjoyment of pain because I've reframed my entire mentality behind it. It's like, man, no, this is proof that I am still here taking breaths. This is proof that I still have an opportunity in front of me. This is proof that I'm not done yet. So I'll take the pain.
Yeah.
And that's where my
is
my
evidence
brain is.
that you're alive.
That's it, man. It's definitely not, it's a coping way of accepting pain, but I've just changed my entire mentality on it.
Yeah. I had an old lacrosse coach who would make us run more suicides than we thought was good for us. And he had a shirt that he would always wear that said, "Pain is just weakness leaving the body." And every time as we did another suicide, he was like, "Pain is weakness leaving the body," and we were like, "All right, I get it, but can we leave this for tomorrow?"
Yes, yes. Can
But
we just like push pause on the pain for today?
yeah, but we were always, I mean, weren't very good at lacrosse, but we were always very well conditioned, so I guess that was good for us.
We were fast. We
Yeah,
don't have to be. We don't have to be the best. We just can't be the slowest.
right. Yes, we never got tired. Um, at what point did you decide, like, okay, I'm going to take all of this, I'm going to start coaching, and I'm going to start helping other people?
I've been doing consulting for probably in the ballpark of around like 10 years. It was post some major failures, post some really hard, difficult times, lack of boundaries. And so then it was just more a matter of using the lessons that I had learned to support other people through those seasons of lessons. And then, it got more serious about, helping once I was building teams and doing some great things. Then I was like, okay, I was helping other people with teams, and then so on and so on. And so, for me, it's always been like a form of a give back, and I enjoy it because I enjoy people winning. And it's probably one of my favorite things to do is see other people hit some major success points. I have a client that he's been a consulting client for I think about 8 years, and man, unfortunately, we just ended our consulting engagement after 8 years, but it's only because he sold for $27 million.
Nice.
That's a good win. And so the business consulting is no longer needed. So I helped him build, scale, and sell over 8 years. And man, it was huge. And his goal, I sat him down about 3 years ago. His goal was to sell for for 10 million by the time he hit 50. And he just sold for 27 million at 43 years old.
Nice, baby.
It's a good day.
That's awesome.
That's a good day. So for me, like that kind of stuff, man, like it juices me up. I help him rebuild a sales team at different points. I help him build and scale his office staff. Like, dude, I love that stuff, man. Like business to me is gear wheels and function. And a lot of times, people, they get intimidated by other people's successes, and man, not me, dude. I love it, dude. If I can find people and push them beyond any success that I'll ever achieve, dude, I love it, man. Let's go. Let's get people moving and shaking and get them out of all these hurdles and difficulties, and let's help them find some real success.
Yeah, absolutely. At what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to write a book? It seems like the right thing to do.
Man, I tell you what, it was actually a publisher that reached out to me in 2023, and the owner was like, man, Nate, I was told to call you. I heard you got some really cool philosophies and probably got some cool stories for a book. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like,
okay.
I had planned on writing a book maybe like 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I mean, let's just talk about some of your ideas. And I'm like, I think I've got like estimated titles and like a paragraph of like 5 different ideas that I just happened to like journal at some point in Google Drive. And so we went through there, and then I was talking to her about the title Suck Less, Do Better and the concept behind the book. And she's like, I love it. Can you write it? I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I've never written an article before.
Why not?
She's like, well, our team can support you in your planning process. And she's like, I'm pretty sure we can help you write this. I'm like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, for me, because it is, the book Suck Less, Do Better is more of like a roadmap. It helps people on their journey and really helps them work through different pieces and really look at the entrepreneurial road a little bit different. And so, I wrote it, and I did my best to, be out there and be more real. I tell my good stories. I tell my hard stories. I tell my funny stories. I think it's the chapter on Lighthouse. I was talking about a 6'2" Brazilian woman I found myself on a date with when I was 35. And I was like, wow. And she told me that she wanted to tie me to her bed. And I was actually scared. I mean, I'm 5'9.5", and she was 6'2", and I was physically scared. I was like, nope, Not going
I'm
anywhere with
leaving.
you, crazy.
Yeah. You're
So
insane.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you gotta be real, have fun, tell stories because people remember stories. And
Yes.
I have people reach out to me all the time like, hey, I remember the principles in this chapter because of this story. And now that's the whole purpose is tell stories. And actually I got another book coming out this year. And so I'm working on the different
Okay.
stories and the different insanities that I want to bring and exactly kind of what all I want to conquer in that process to really help people.
Yeah. Is this book just for entrepreneurs, or is this kind of got a broader audience?
It does have a broader audience. There's a lot of people that find themselves stuck, stuck in a career, stuck in a situation. And one of the first chapters in the book is define your suck. And that's
Mm,
where like that suck is that place that you got to run from, that place that the best version of you doesn't show up in. And what I find is a lot of people that are working W-2 jobs, they're actually living in their suck and they're not
right.
living in their greatness of who they're really called or meant to be. And
Yeah.
so, when you look at life, it's you got the lighthouse in front of you. You should be always chasing after, and in your rear view should be your suck, because there's certain days that you get up and you look at your lighthouse and you're just kind of like, nah, I just don't want to do the hard work. And then if that's not going to keep you moving, you got to look backwards, look out that back window, and be like, nope, not going back there. Let's go.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And sometimes you got to stay connected to both. You're driving towards one and you're making sure and keeping an eye on that to make sure that you're not slowly working yourself back to that area.
Yeah. Where can people find the book, find you online, follow you, etc.?
So the website is successwithnategreen.com. There's a link to the book there. You can always just get it on Amazon or Audible. I tortured myself by going to a recording studio and doing all that fun stuff and
Ooh,
really
fun.
finding some humble pie in that process. But successwithnategreen.com has links to basically everything. Also, there's some free courses on there and a lot of ways you can connect and look at coaching options and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. What should they look out for the new book you're talking about? Any dates or anything they should be keeping in mind?
We don't have any official dates, but we are looking for a holiday season, November, December right now is kind of what our target is. And so we're really pushing for that so people can have something different to roll into the new year with, to be a part of that new year launch for them. And so this one is going to be a little less edgier title, a little bit different, still a little, captivating. But I realize that, the book, can you imagine if I just met you real quick in Starbucks and I was like, oh man, here's a copy of my book, Suck Less, Do Better. They're like, did I just get insulted?
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I think. And so for me, it's more like, hey, listen, I love the title. It's edgy. It's me. This next one is going to be a little bit more on the sensitive side to make sure that
Yeah.
we're like really like being able to connect with people and guide them still through to a better version of them and really help them break free from their limiting beliefs and really help them chase after their better future.
Yeah. And that will be also available on Success with Nate Green. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep,
Yep.
everything will be listed there in Amazon. So once you find me and harass me, then we can stay there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Jackson, man, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. See you guys.